Hello everybody and welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Today we are back with Nervos Network. If you like the video, leave a like. If you don't, leave a dislike, that's totally fine too. With that said, let's get straight into it. Again, like many altcoins and generally the whole crypto space, Nervos got a rally at the end of 2023 and at the start of 2024, which ended with Q1 of 2024. And ever since, it's basically been trading down. Now, in terms of what we can expect in the future, for me, I need to zoom out and take a look at the past. And we can see that Nervos Network has actually seen a performance very similar to what we're currently going through, where we moved from the low to the high of this support and resistance band that Nervos has been in basically since its inception. And what happened once we went from this low to this high? Well, we had a sharp pullback, and we came down to a local low, which does look quite similar to what we've currently had. We've had a sharp pullback, and we could have found a local low here. And then after we found that local low, we then rallied up and returned back to these highs, but note that they were lower highs than what we previously got. Now, the key similarities for this comparison is that from this high, we then dropped 79% to the local low where we found a bottom. And we found that bottom by basically putting in 2 weeks at that level. We had an open and a close. We have now dropped 79%, the same amount, from the local high that we got a few months back, and have also put in a few opens and closes at that price. And we can actually see we're currently on that support, so potentially we could wick below. Again, this is all speculation, but in my opinion, if we're still around this range within a week or two, it mightn't be too unrealistic to suggest that we get a turnaround. Note as well that previously when we did get this turnaround, the bull market support band flipped pretty soon afterwards. And when it actually flipped, we saw an immediate pullback, but then continued to rally higher. We could see something similar where we find this local low now, we trade up for a few weeks. When the bull market support band flips, we get a bit of a sharp pullback, potentially back to say 1 cent. And then we rally up from that 1 cent support that we were at previously back up to the highs. If that was the case, you could expect this to happen over a 19-week time frame, which would put us having our final peak at the end of 2024. And if we move up a similar amount as previously, either 250% or back up to this support, if we move back up to the support, which would be equal to a 233% move, we'd see 2.5 cents. If we moved up 250%, it would basically be a similar price of 2.7 cents. So either way, both project a return of around 2.5 cents. Now, there is a good chance that Nervos actually just ignores this and does continue to climb higher. And that's because if we put interest rates and we take a look at previously where we were in terms of basis points, we can see back in 2021, we were at extremely low levels of interest. Money was extremely cheap to borrow, and naturally a lot of that money went into the crypto space. However, we are currently, what we've seen recently, at very high interest rates, which usually dampens price action. There's just less money going around, so things can't move up as high. However, if potentially we start to see basis points decrease, and we start to see the economy ease up, and we get some potentially bullish catalysts like a new American president at the end of the year, and say by maybe April, March, May timeframes, we're back at quite low basis points, maybe we're at 2.5, something like this, that's when I can see altcoins like Nervos Network doing really well and putting in new all-time highs. But again, do note that basically breaks our comparison of what we saw back in 2021. Note that also this reversion basically took place before 2021, and whereas this move here basically took place before 2024. So we haven't actually had a 4-year cycle like we do usually get. However, if Nervos was about to experience what we got back in 2021, you could expect a very strong move to the upside in the very short term, which again would line up with both the initial comparison back to 2021 and of course it just being something totally new. In my opinion, it depends on how high the move goes. If we suddenly rocket up and we get a bull market support band that looks like this, that suddenly just goes up at like a 70-degree angle, we can comfortably say that we're experiencing something new and that most likely it's to do with basis points. However, if we see a similar move as before, where we get a smaller move up, bit of a pullback, and again a smaller move up, we don't take out the previous high, then we can more or less comfortably say we're seeing what we got in 2021 now. And again, in terms of where that would put you if we did get a move like we saw back here, that's a 250% move. So from today's current prices of 0.7 cents, that would bring you up to just under close to 3 cents, 2.7 basically. So not poor price action, but again, I think Bitcoin will make a similar move, to be honest with you, and it's a lot less risky. Now, there is also the chance that Nervos Network doesn't follow this comparison and just goes into putting new all-time highs. Honestly, if it is one of the chosen few altcoins that does this, then of course that is extremely bullish. Do note that it is one of the few altcoins that actually came back basically to its all-time highs. We only saw Solana and Bitcoin and kind of Ethereum do this. Very few others did. So you could take that as a very bullish sign. Again, it's got a market cap of 350 billion. It's not in the top 100 cryptos. So there is a good chance that if Nervos Network gets attention, it could see crazy gains. But again, that is very much speculation. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, here we're taking a look at a time frame that actually lines up much better with the 4-year cycle. We can see that currently from this peak, that's what we're going to be comparing from. This took place in April of 2024, this year of course, and this peak here took place in August. And I feel like 4 months is a decent enough margin for error. 4 months in terms of 4 years is actually quite little. So getting into the actual analysis, we saw back in 2020 that we put in this high before absolutely falling off a cliff before we reached 2021, 21 being our bull run year, and we rocket right back up to this upper band. What we are currently seeing is from the local high that we've had, which also tagged this upper band, we have so far currently dropped 75%. Again, 3% away from this initial kind of consolidation before putting in another lower leg. So if we are going to continue to play out how we did back in 2020, we can see that after we got on this capitulation from this low to our ultimate low of that cycle, we moved down an extra 33% from that low. If we take a look at how far 33% down from the current low would bring us, that would put us down sub 10,000 Satoshis. We can see that the timeframes are relatively similar as well, from how long it took for us to move down from this high to this low, where we get a few open and closes at the same price. We can see back here it was actually 14, so it's taken us longer to get down to this price. You could make the case actually that therefore it's going to be much quicker of a move moving down, or you could also make the case that because this is a little further back in sort of the 4-year cycle time frame, this high took place in April, whereas this one took place in August, we might just take the same amount of time to make the same move down. And ultimately, I don't think it's really important how long it takes for us to move down to this level. If we're going to, most likely it's going to be a couple of months maximum. And again, it could line up very well with 2025, because last time that's when it bottomed out, 2021, and then we saw very strong moves to the upside. Note that we could also just return down to this 12,000 Satoshi level, which is basically the previous price that we bottomed out at. But do note we were actually recently much lower than this previous low, so there's, in my mind, not too much stopping it from actually going back down to this level and potentially even lower, much lower in fact. So just be aware of that. Again, I don't want to disillusion anyone. I do want to point out the fact that Nervos against Bitcoin is basically in a downward trend. We've only had lower highs, and it's the same thing for the US dollar version. We've only had lower highs for Nervos, and while we did come close to putting in a new all-time high here, technically it still is an all-time high, but it does look worse on the Bitcoin chart. So just be aware, while it might perform well, you still might be losing value against Bitcoin. Also, the total value in trading volume that we've had over these 17 weeks in this downward trend is 1/20th of what we got previously in 2020, which to me is not a bullish sign at all. It shows that basically nobody is there. And compared to 2020, when also nobody was here, there were still a lot more people interested in Nervos. Now we're in the same predicament where nobody's here, but it's just got a lot less people around the project, which is also worrying to me. But we have also seen this with a lot of altcoins that return for a second cycle. there isn't their first rodeo, we do often see that their trading volume is very poor. And whether that translates into weaker price action, who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike too, that's totally fine. Consider subscribing. You can do that by clicking my face up here, or you can just go on to the next video by clicking up in the top right hand corner. Thank you so much, guys. Take care and peace.